All right, welcome to my video about a 2010 Ford Flex repair project that me and the oldest are working on. Dude's gonna get his learner's permit here in October, so he's looking for these cars that are cheap. So he got this Ford Flex EcoBoost for 900 bucks. Had a spun rod bearing. So we put in a new one, got new Melling high flow oil pump, put a timing chain in with a water pump. And also, we removed and reinstalled the engine from the top side. With all the parts and stuff, we're gonna have about $1,800 into this thing, which is pretty good for what it is. So here's the images of the car that we bought. The thing was pretty rough, 250,000 miles from Detroit, so it's got all kinds of stuff. Turbos are pretty well eaten up on the compressor side. That's just how it goes. Now the oil filter, when we cut it open, it didn't look that bad, but there was quite a bit of metal in the bottom of the pleats. Then when I drained the oil pan, there was not very much oil in that pan at all. So this is how it looks when we picked up the car with the valve covers off and some rust on the cam lobes and things like that. But not that big of a deal to yank it out with a couple of pavers on the ground. Then we had a little bit of an issue with what would be cylinder 3. It's got some kind of like crumbs down in there and some oil. Turns out, yeah, that was a chewed up spark plug. I don't know how that would work, but we set the timing up so that we could put it back. Here you're looking at the spun rod bearing. The seam on those is pointing right out, so it rotated about 90 degrees there. These are all the parts we got. So I happen to know a little bit about this engine, so we got the colder heat range spark plug in there. This is the correct valve cover gasket for the single phaser EcoBoost, the 50767. It's wrong on Rock Auto, and they don't take returns very easily. Got that Melling 390 HV oil pump. There are a lot of counterfeit 390 HV oil pumps out there. I accidentally bought one, and yeah, it was just a regular cheap oil pump. So got the name brand Melling one, made in USA. Got a couple of rod bolts. Had a couple of bolts stretch on me, so we got 2 new ones there. Got all new exhaust shields for the turbos. I did get these Chinese-made billet compressor center section things. Guy was super cool. XY Turbo 2024. Got a no-name eBay water pump, 180 thermostat. We got these SPGR-1 plastic gauge, which has the 1 to 3 thousandths or something range for the rod bearing. Got new rod bearings in Rock Auto, new timing chain, and then we got some cam holders for it to get that set up. Now to fix the rod bearing, we got this hydrochloric acid from Menards. It's got the more concentrated one here, and then we also got some emery cloth, the 600, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 grit. So the idea is that you polish it with the coarsest grit first, and then move to the finer grit. But before you can even do that, you got to eat off all the aluminum that's bonded to the daggone rod bearing. So here we're eating that aluminum off with the hydrochloric acid, and what this is going to do is it's going to take that off, and it'll let me polish that journal a little bit better. A little bit of got a little hot, so this is a pretty risky repair. If this was my daily driver, I don't know if I'd do it, but it's just for some teenager, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of money on a car he's just going to wreck, right? So after we eat off all of the aluminum, we've got sort of like the bare surface. So again, start with 600, then 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000. This is just 600 here, showing you what we get. Yeah, and then this technique, I learned this on YouTube, where you take a little slip of this emery cloth and a little shoelace or something like that, and sit there and polish it in the engine. So I didn't even take the crankshaft out here, just polishing it with a little little squirt of WD-40, little strip there, wrapped around a couple of times. And I'm telling you what, it worked. You know, we got all the aluminum off from the old bearing, got her all polished up, and yeah, I mean, you can see that it's not perfect, you know, but like I said, this car's just going to get wrecked here in a little bit, because that's how teenage boys sort of are. Here's the back side of the cylinder 3 bearing. Then this is him torquing them down. We did plastic gauge it. We had 1.5 thousandths clearance on the one that we had repaired. So we got a little bit of Ford blue spray paint. We're just kind of polishing a turd, I guess. But here you can see the new oil pump in there, new timing chain, new water pump. I didn't replace any of the guides or any of the phasers or anything else. Because, you know, the engine, I didn't even know if it was going to work. So I didn't want to spend all this money, you know, $600-700 or whatever dollars on all these timing parts, you know, just to have it not work. So we got to paint it up so it looks okay. Yeah, got the manifolds on there. I didn't buy new exhaust manifold bolts. Those are the same ones that came with it. I just slathered them with nickel anti-seize. Yeah, cleaned it up really good inside and out. Now on this here is the eBay billet center section. The old center sections, the compressor wheel was pretty eaten up. So what I did is, in the same way I polished the crank journal, I went in here with the 600, 1000, and I polished the any damage that was on that compressor thing, that like shape like that. It just needed a little love. We got it polished up. Yeah, and so, you know, getting the engine back together on the stand, what I wanted to do was make sure that I had good oil pressure. So I put everything together so that I could, you know, get the oil pump primed, because I wasn't gonna have a situation where I replace the oil pump and then we can't get the oil pressure, and, you know, I got to pull it out. So on this one here, you know, I had to put the oil filter on, the turbos, the oil lines, everything like that. So what I ended up doing is getting this little push to connect fitting and put it where the oil pressure sensor is. And then I got this little like syringe thing, filled it with clean oil, and I'm squirting the oil into the engine block between the oil filter and the oil pump. And I probably put 2-3 quarts, you know, a few milliliters at a time or whatever in order to do this. Now, this is after I sit here and I was cranking this crankshaft over and over and over and over again, and I just couldn't build oil pressure. And it would have been like that in the car if I hadn't have done this. So this is kind of a cool way to prime that oil pump. It worked pretty good. If I could do it again, I would have got a bigger syringe maybe, or like some way to like pressurize the oil rather than doing it one little shot at a time. But, you know, if you don't have anything better to do with your time, like I don't, so you just do it. You work with what you have on hand. I mean, it's not rocket surgery. But yeah, here we got it all bolted together with the good RTV. Use that high vibration RTV on everything. Also, you know, all the bolt heads and stuff, I cleaned them up really good and put anti-rust stuff on there for it. So hopefully the next person who has to take this thing apart won't have such a hard time. Not that I don't have any faith in my work or anything like that. It's just, I'm just being real. It's got 250,000 miles on it, and I'm fixing a rod bearing with acid. Anyway, so another thing that happened is I broke this pressure switch on here, and this sucker costs like $80, and I'm not about to buy one, right? So what I did is I took it apart and I soldered the 3 pins to the circuit board, and then I just potted it with epoxy there to seal it up. That should work. Yeah, so this engine and everything weighs a ton, so, you know, I rebuilt it in my garage and had to take it out to the yard to put it in. So hitched it to the back of the Nissan Leaf and drove it back there with this little hitch thing that I've got. Good thing I have a class 3 hitch on this Leaf. It was dragging a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. It was way overloaded. But anyhow, it was a little easier to get back in than it was to take out. I don't know why, but it slid right in there. Couple of late nights working on it, but, you know. anything to get this out of my yard. So took a couple of days to get all the plugs figured out and all the vacuum lines and things, but I really wanted to see if it would crank over, to see if she would even turn or whatever with all this stuff on it. So it needed a little bit of help getting the fuel primed. We didn't have all the lines were empty of fuel, so it was kind of a bummer to sit there and crank it till the battery was dead. But eventually was able to get the fuel primed, get the battery charged up enough that it would actually crank over. And because I figured I was going to take this out anyway, I only put water into the cooling system, but I did buy a bunch of 50/50 or whatever OAT coolant for it. So yeah, she runs. It run. We drove it around the block. Here's the finished product on there. Now the previous owner was a little bit of a not quite a perfectionist, so they whacked off the mufflers and put on these little glass pack things, but the welding was left something wanting, we'll say. So we cut off all this slag and crap and put it on the bench and welded it up right with some stainless MIG wire. Yeah, the boy out there doing it. Yeah, so this was an idea of our repair project, and if I can get 1,000 miles on this without spinning another rod bearing, I think that's success. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope I provided some good info for you.